thought I'd show you a simple shadow box card that I made with a nice effective colour contrast background. And I took a piece of A4 card, cut it 15 centimetres deep and left it at the 21 centimetres wide, which is obviously the width of a standard A4 sheet. I scored it then 3.5 centimetres from either edge, and I also scored it at 5.5 centimetres from either edge, and that leaves you with a 10 centimetre middle. So this is going to form the box bit of my shadow box card. What I also did was do some watercolouring on some watercolour paper I got using black and blue paints, and I just painted a night sky. I wet washed the paper and then using black paint first allowed it to spread, and then the blue paint to spread, and left some areas that were quite pale, and then I dried it off using my hairdryer. And what I've also done, because watercolour can look very matte, is to put a little coat of dilute PVA over the top and left it to dry, which has given it a bit of a sheen, which I think you're able to see. And that is going to fit inside the box bit of my shadow box, and it'll sit something like that, and I will stick that in place. The next piece of card that I need is for my middle bit of my shadow box, and I wanted to score it at 1 centimetre from either end so that it would stand up from the base and stick on the sides. So obviously this piece of card is also 15 centimetres deep, but it is 12 centimetres across the top, with the score lines 1 centimetre from either side, but I won't be folding those until I've cut out my scene in the middle. Then the final piece of A4 card that I cut is to cover the top of the box. And so again, it is 15 centimetres deep, and I made it 17 centimetres long so that it will cover the whole of the card. And I will be cutting that out as well. So the first thing I did was to take this very pretty little die, which I bought from the Works, and is in fact part of a snow globe die, and I cut out the inner piece, the 12 centimetre one that's scored at 10 centimetres, to form the inner scene. Now I want the Father Christmas and the reindeer to be flying across the background sky, so I'm just going to trim those off. So it's just a quick question of a little bit of snipping. And that is the scene that I want for the front piece. And then the Father Christmas will sit on the background. So I'm going to now fold along those score lines. The way I do that is I take a ruler, take it to the edge of my chopping board, cutting board, and just fold up along the scored line. Now I actually want it to be folded the other way, so I will turn it over and then just do the same on the other side. Once I've got it fairly well up, I actually use a spoon because my hands are weak. I've got a ducted spoon, and I just smooth along the crease line. And I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side as well. And that means then that although I haven't stuck the background in, which I need to do, I can show you what it's going to look like. And obviously it's raised up from the background, and I will stick these edges to the box bit of the shadow box card, and the Father Christmas will be whizzing across the sky on the background like that. So the next bit to do is the front piece, and that's very simple. I just took a D-shaped die that is 9 centimetres wide, and don't forget your inner piece is 10, so you want that sort of box effect, so use a die that's a bit smaller, and I cut it out centrally in the middle of my 17 centimetre card, so that that is going to fit when everything is stuck onto the front like that. once you've stuck your background in place and you've stuck your inner piece in place as well, and I use Collall all-purpose glue, but you could use double-sided tape as well, then you're starting to build up your scene and your card. I put the inner piece in first before adding the Flying Father Christmas, because I wanted to make sure it was well within that circle, so that's fine. The next thing that I did is, obviously you can decorate everything now. So first of all, I embossed my outer piece of paper using this lovely snowfall embossing folder, and that looks quite pretty. I wanted to make a little trim edge for it, so I took the largest of my nested D shapes and cut that out with the one that I cut the original center hole from, and that made a nice trim which I will be positioning over like that. I also wanted to decorate with lots of bits and pieces, and actually my Holtz Treeline die is brilliant for that, because you can make all sorts of scenes and you can snip bits off to create whatever it is that you want. I've also got this very sweet little reindeer die or deer die that I also cut out from scrap bits of card. I decided that I wouldn't over decorate this card. I wanted it to look neat as well as pretty, and so I just put the deer and the little tree bits behind this front cover of the card, and then I stuck that in place. I'm going to tip my snowflakes off because nothing's stuck yet. So having done that, that's my scene. I decided to add a little bit of colour, and I took a tiny little red dot and put it on Rudolph's nose just to add that little bit of colour, because what I also did was cut out some sentiments. I did one in silver mirror card and one in red, and it was from the little push out bits in that I could get Rudolph's nose. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to stick the one on top of the other to get that slightly dimensional effect. So the next thing is that with the D-shaped ring, I cut out 3 of those because, again, I wanted some depth, and that I'm going to be sticking in place on the front of the card like that. And then I've got various snowflakes cut out from various dies that I've got, and I'm going to scatter them round my card to create a pretty embellishment. And you can use any shapes, any sizes, just for your choice. And I will stick them in place and we'll be ready to roll. I might group a couple of them together, maybe have 3 up here. Can all be different, and in fact having a random collection rather than symmetry is actually quite nice, and you've got a very nice card, and I'll show it to you standing up when I've stuck everything in place. Of course, once everything's stuck on, you've got your Merry Christmas at the bottom, and I stuck those 2 together just slightly off centre so that the red stands out. I put the snowflakes in random manner around, tiny bit of sparkle, I don't know if you can actually see, a bit of snowflake. And that is complete. And of course, as with all of these cards, you can just fold them flat and put them in an envelope to send to some lucky recipient. So a simple, straightforward scene that I hope you think works really well.